Right. So you see how people impose their own moral standards on that situation, and thereby they, oh, I have to share again, right? Share screen. Right. So people more or less impose their own moral standards on situations and circumstances. So you have to know what you stand for. You have to know the principles that you stand for. And sometimes, sometimes you do good and people might judge it wrongfully, and sometimes you do, well, not bad, but yeah, sometimes you could be mistaken. So you have to know what you're for, and you have to know the principles that you stand for. Kohlberg, some criticisms of Kohlberg is that one, that girls' moral reasoning different from male moral reasoning, and another criticism is that children often reason about moral situations in more sophisticated ways than the straightforward, simple ways that we have here. And it's an important limitation is that moral reasoning rather than actual behavior. So sometimes we might say what we will do in a moral situation, but it may not be what we will actually do. Moral reasoning and moral behavior might be different one from the other. How do children develop socially and emotionally, right? So a teacher of one, of course, as a teacher, will be responsible for students' academic achievement. So, and you would also help them to strive and develop socially, and you'd help them to strive to develop emotionally as well. The social and emotional development depends on the experiences that the children would have in school, the experiences with their teachers, the experiences with their families, and they also follow predictable patterns. Now the picture, children in the picture here, what do you observe about this picture here?
The children are playing or working together to have fun or come up with an end goal, probably.
Right. Right, thank you, Cody. So they're interacting with one another, they're playing, they're not fighting, they're not, they're interacting on a normal level. And that kind of interaction is called pro-social behaviors. So they're caring, they're sharing, they might show comfort if somebody bounces their toe or if somebody gets their finger squeezed, they would empathize, sympathize, and so on. And they'll cooperate with one another. Most of a preschooler's interaction with peers occur during play. So most times you could understand the differences among children, how children interact with one another by the way that they play with each other. And this is preschool level. And there are some different types of play according to Berlin. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4 types on the screen here. Solitary play, some children might be in a group, but they might choose to play by themselves at a particular time. Then there's parallel play, where children will be playing side by side, but they're not playing with each other, they are playing alongside each other. So one might be playing with a car, and the other one might be playing with a doll. One might be playing one type of game, the other one might be playing with a ball or something like that. Okay, somebody's hand is raised, sure now.
All right, so question, right? Now I just came in a little late. You mentioned pro-social behavior, and they would experience that, or is it experience it during play, or is it develop it during play? What is it?
Well, they will develop it during play, and it can be enhanced during play. But this is when you see it coming out.
All right. Question, right?
And you as a teacher can, yeah, go ahead.
Right. Say my child is an only child. Who doesn't have children around him, many adults.
Yes.
Especially during this pandemic times now, after when we leave, you have to transition to preschool and so on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it that when I play with my child, that my child is developing these behaviors, or is it that they have to play with children specifically to actually develop such behaviors towards children?
Well, I would want to think that's an interesting question, and that could be an interesting bit of research, you know. But I would want to guess that it's the way that you play with the child, because if you interact with the child as an adult, then you're teaching the child adult to child interaction. But if you get on the ground and you behave like a child, not childish, but you know, if you understand what I mean, You play like
Yeah.
if you're playing as a child. Okay, your
Mhm.
turn now. You play. You do like if you simulate or you imitate being a child with the child. That is a different type of interaction, and that type of interaction would better prepare them. I would think, to deal with other children in a preschool or early childhood type of environment. What do you think?
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Good.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So it depends because you just know a child that grew up with adults, don't you? Don't we know children when they grow up with when they only in a house with only adults, Cody? Oh yes, no.
Yes,
Yeah.
because their behavior, the conversation they have.
Yes, that's true.
Everything you know that child.
They like to take charge too, so they like to take charge when they know with their friends.
Exactly. There's the real and big up conversation, don't they put in the mouth and that sort of a thing. You know that child is growing up in an environment and they're more mature in terms of their interactions. Whereas a child who is growing up with children behaves in such a way that you could tell the difference. And so it's how you interact with the child that is important, you know. Long time they used to tell us, this is conversation not for you. Go and play, go and find something to do. Adults talking here, excuse, or they were speaking gibberish or something like that. So as a young child, you wouldn't really understand. But nowadays, I don't know. Children, they have the phone in their hand, they're right there in between their parents, and that could be, you have to watch that very carefully in terms of their socialization. Right, so there's parallel play, and then the associative play, like parallel play, but with increased levels of interaction in the form of sharing, turn taking, interest in what is going on. So when they're doing associative play, they're parallel playing, but they're exchanging and they're interacting with one another during the process. But the pure parallel play is that they're playing alongside each other, but they're doing different things. So this little picture here depicts the parallel play, and cooperative play is where they join one another. So they're building something together. Okay, so I put a spotlight on the image and you might be able to see the things. So this solitary, the person's by themselves, unoccupied, they really business what is going on. The onlooker play, he's watching other children play. Parallel play, they're both doing activities, but they're doing it individual type of activities. Associative play, they interact with one another, talking about what you're doing, talking about what you're building, pass that for me and so on. And cooperative play is where they are involved in some sort of a project or together. Okay, right. Socio-emotional development during the elementary years. Of course, as children, so moving on from the early childhood years, their socio-emotional development continues into the elementary school years. And of course, their skills become a little more complex in terms of their thought, their action, and their social influence. During this stage, children try to prove that they're grown up, they're a little more bigger, they're a little bigger, they're a little more independent, so to speak. At this stage, you would include a growth of independent action, cooperation with groups, and performing in socially acceptable ways, and a concern for what is fair and for what is right. So that is why sometimes in those circumstances, you find children like to tell a lot. I'm going to tell Miss, I'm going to tell Sir, if you do, we're supposed to be playing the game, so you're not being fair. They have all those little things you hear in children in the elementary school as they interact with one another. And of course, it is a little more complex. It's not as simple as the different types of play that you looked at. You have in groups and out groups. Exclusion and inclusion would also be taking place as well. Two important aspects of socio-emotional development during these elementary school years with the idea of self-concept and self-esteem. So the self-concept is the perceptions that we have about ourselves in different areas of life, so to speak. So you have a self-concept for math, self-concept for English, self-concept in your ability to sing, self-concept in your ability to cook. And usually your self-concept should be closely related to reality. But of course, if you look at the first picture here, you'd realize that the kitten is seeing himself or herself as a what?
A lion.
A lion, yes.
Man.
So the self-concept there is a little stretched. Wouldn't you think? Wouldn't you say? The self-concept is a little stretched. And so young children, as they go through these primary school years, they see sometimes they assess themselves much bigger and much better than they actually are. And that's the self-concept in terms of their abilities. And that is why they do so much self-comparison. That's why they always compare and competing with one another. I finished first, I do better than you, and so on. The self-concept. And this is where, so from social comparison, they get an idea of how good they are at different things. So they'll know who's the best one at spelling, who's better at math, who could read real good. And then you ask them, so why do you think you're a good reader? They say, well, Miss always calling me to read. Miss find I just read real nice, real good. I just finished my maths first and I got all right, because they compare themselves with others, social comparison. And the other image there, what is the girl doing in this image here?
Hugging herself,
Hugging herself.
feeling love.
Feeling
Love.
Feeling love, definitely. So this picture here depicts the whole notion of self-esteem, or the esteem or the value of self-love, of how you value yourself. Now, this is important because how children value themselves is important in terms of how they think others would see them and how they feel they should be treated, and also impacts upon how they treat others as well. So self-esteem and self-concepts are two very important ideations of self that develop during the primary school years and continue into adolescence. Peers become more and more important as children progress through school. And as we said last week, young children, like in early to middle primary schools, they focus on same-sex peer groups, right? Their relationship with brothers and sisters also affect how they interact with their peers. So if you'd find that girls who grow up with a lot of brothers, you'd find that they interact very well with boys in school and vice versa. They know how to interact with boys. They're comfortable with boys. Or some of them even engage in more play with boys than a normal girl who grew up with only sisters, or as the case may be. In lower elementary schools, they form very tight peer groups with the same sex. So boys line with boys, girls link with girls, and so when recess time comes, when playtime comes, they go outside in their groups of males and females and they play within their groups. Somebody saying something? Anya?
Hi, sir.
Yeah, you okay?
Yes, sir. Good. How are you doing?
No, good. I thought I was hearing something coming from your screen. I thought you were saying something.
Oh.
All right, okay. Yes. So by 6th grade or by Form 1, students begin to interact with members of the opposite sex. So they might have the mixed peer groups as they progress into secondary school. Okay, so you'd see that difference in terms of the growing importance. But peers are important because their peers, they use their peers to more or less validate themselves as sort of a self-validation through their peers, and just being able to link with others outside of the home. Friendships in middle childhood is also important. As you see the joy on the face of the individuals who are accepted by their peers in the top picture. But the boy on the bottom picture seems to be rejected, and being rejected, of course, he will feel ostracized, feel that he is different or she is different in terms of the way he or she is treated. So friendships in middle to late childhood is very important because children need companions, they need emotional resources, help them with cognitive resources, help them to also identify what are important, what are valuable social norms, how they ought to conduct themselves, and how to resolve conflicts when conflicts do arise. Now, peer acceptance manifests itself in different ways. So you have the popular child, you'll have a popular child in your class or two. Everybody likes that child, everybody wants to be their friend, everybody wants to do them, share their stuff with them, play with them, they want them on their team, and so on. And then there is the rejected child on the other end of the spectrum, where most children often dislike, and they are least accepted in the group. Then there's the controversial child, the one that gives trouble, that some like half, almost half like and half dislike. And then the rest of children fall in the category what you call average children, right? Of being like or dislike. And this information comes from research where they ask children in classes to identify those whom they like, those whom they would reject, and those whom they would consider just a mere friend. Okay. James Marcia developed further Erickson's identity, search for identity. And he says basically, when you reach into adolescence, adolescents might experience what you call 4 identity statuses. That would be based on exploration, which is search for identity, and the commitment to a particular identity. So sometimes the identity is foreclosed, where adults make choices of what they wear, what they should wear, who their friends should be, what career they should choose. So the identity is foreclosed. Then there is identity diffusion, where the individual is they don't know what they want to do, who they want to be, and one minute you see them in one style, next minute you see them in a different style, and they're not following any particular pattern. Their identity is all over the place, so to speak. They have no commitment and they're not exploring anything. When commitment is high and identity is high, they have an identity achievement. They thought about it, they know what they want in life, and they know which direction they're heading with their identity. And moratorium is when they have made a commitment, but they're thinking about what they should explore. So you have these 4 statuses that James Marcia identified as identity statuses. And he further developed Erickson's theory. Okay, so let's come up with this. Right. So then there are different ways through social and emotional learning we can use to enhance children's socio-emotional development. So you can help them understanding their emotions, focus on the emotions, focus on the correct types of traits they should develop. You can have them role playing and that sort of thing. In adolescence, they begin to shift from more external factors to internal factors. You hear them describing their friends as nice, good looking, and so on. Yes, but it's like she real friendly, or he real friendly, or he real sickening. You know that word that they like. And so they would link with persons and be associated with one another based on these different factors. They have different emotions. They could be depressed, they could be psyched up, they can be positive or negative. Then, of course, and adolescents, they begin to take on their own personal beliefs system. Whether they're going to be a liberal believer, like somebody say, I go take the money and worry about what will happen after. And then some people might be conservative and say, wrong is wrong, better leave the child, let the child die. Then you make a choice that you would regret. Okay? And the self-concept becomes more differentiated. That means you begin to understand what you can and cannot do, and you begin to understand your abilities much better as you get older, because you're getting a clearer knowledge and a clearer understanding of yourself and your abilities. Do you agree with that? That you know yourself, you know what you can and cannot do, you know what you're good at and what you're not so good at. You know that better now in your adolescence or beyond your adolescence than when you were in primary school?
Yes.
Yes.
Most definitely.
Most definitely, we hope so. So you can see, and of course that the primary school would be greater knowledge of self than would be the early childhood. So you're seeing that the individual, when we're talking about the psychology of learning, you're seeing the individual going through growth changes and growth phases. So as a teacher, you have to be observant and observe where children are at and see who are going through the correct stages and phases as they progress through school. So you know who would be on the mark, you know who are a little behind, and you know who are a little advanced. And then you come up with different activities, social, emotional, understanding themselves in order to be able to help them. So there might be a child who's always crying, or other children make them cry, make them feel bad very easily. So you know that their self-esteem might be down. What do you do as a teacher? What are some things? What do you have to find out a little bit more about the child and see how we could bring him or her to the center of the class and allow him or her to be more involved in activities and more acceptable to children. There are children who might be over the top and want all the attention and always want the spotlight, always want to hug the spotlight. How do you help them to develop a balance and to be more concerned and compassionate for others and that sort of thing? So as a teacher, you always have to be observant, not only the cognitive skill or cognitive abilities, but you also have to be observant of the social, interactional abilities and the emotional development of your children. Of course, morality is also important in terms of the choices of right and wrong that they do. There are some children who, once you give them instructions, they're not going to turn from your instructions. And there are others who, as soon as you turn your back, they jump and they do the wrong thing that you're telling them not to do all the time. As soon as you step out, and of course, you know, you'll have those who will come and, miss, as soon as you went across there, this one did this and this one did that, or sir, as the case, right? Self-esteem also continues to develop through adolescence, and it's lowest in children who enter middle, and when we say middle school, we're talking about Form 1, Form 2, or junior high school at the onset of puberty. But early maturing girls tend to suffer the most drastic and long-lasting decreases in self-esteem, because some of them, they're ostracized by other girls, they're picked on by other girls. Also, although sometimes they get a lot of attention from bigger boys because they begin to mature faster, they often enter into issues and challenges with their self and body ideation. But in adolescence, self-worth appears to be strongly related to physical appearance and then by social acceptance from their peers. So those who are, you know, the popular and the well-accepted ones, they are the ones who have the most healthy self-worth during this period of time, rather than those who are rejected and those who are more or less regularly left out. Again, social relationship and peers are very important during this period of time because they look, rather than the family, they look towards their peers for validation. They look towards their peers for a certain level of acceptance. And those who have healthy relationships report more satisfying levels of self-esteem rather than those who are lonely and those who don't have those social skills. And they also do better in school, have mature social skills and do better in school. All right, most adolescents place high value on the larger peer group as a source of ideas and the values of for companionship and entertainment. Of course, the relationships in adolescence are characterized in terms of social status and the peer groups, who are the in-group and who are the out-group. Popular and well-accepted children tend to display the positive resolution academic skills and pro-social behavior and leadership skills as well. Those who are rejected and those who are poorly accepted usually are the ones who display antisocial behavior, antisocial skills, and skills more of aggression and more the negative type skills are the ones who find themselves on the other side of the spectrum. Right, and you have in terms of emotional development, most adolescents experience some emotional conflict at some point in time. And this often can lead to some major adolescent issues. And if the emotional health is not properly taken care of, it can be a key factor in their academic development. Some of them, because of their life experiences, have a lot of anger, guilt, frustration, etc., as well as, and then some might experience jealousy. And of course, you all might be well acquainted with some of the adolescent issues, such as the emotional disorders, bullying. Well, you know, it's have cyberbullying now, dropping out of school, drug use, abuse, delinquency, of course, pregnancy, STDs, people are not talking about it so much again. Issues of sexual identity, want to identify as who are male and want to identify as female, and vice versa. want to enter into gay relationships. That's on the rise. Doing things that are a little different from their parents. They want their tattoos. They want, you know, and those in a religious environment, church environment, sometimes they want to explore what is on the outside. They feel that they were being deprived of certain experiences in life, and they're being kept from the excitement and the joys of life. So sometimes there are issues there with that. Yeah. So those are more or less some of the main factors that individuals will experience in social, emotional, and moral development during childhood, middle to late child, early childhood, middle to late childhood, and some aspects of adolescence in a nutshell. As I said before, remember you have to read your chapters. Read one chapter per week, people, if you want to do well in this course, because if you don't, you would have trouble with the exam. I'm telling you in advance. Multiple choice, but you have a little trouble if you don't read your chapters and you don't learn the key terms at the end of each chapter. Any questions? Based on what we've covered this afternoon?
So you could post the recordings.
Yes,
Please,
yes, I will. You reached late, Cody.
Yes, I wasn't there
Please.
I reached late last week and I was here with you.
Hey, girl, come. All right. Okay, let me stop recording now. Let's stop this recording. So share.